How many of you are binge watchers? Anybody? A few? It's a new term, Cotty. It has to do with Netflix and some of the other streaming video opportunities online these days. And people will get a particular show that they like, and they'll just watch episode after episode after episode. I'm currently watching NCIS. I watched it way back when it started and liked it, and then kind of lulled off of it for a while and don't know anything about the newest episodes. But I think I'm back in season 3, and I'll watch maybe 1 or 2 episodes a day. And so I'm slowly but surely catching up. I think I've got about 15 seasons or so to go. But the thing that happens to you, if you like a show, is that one week you're out of town, or one week you go to bed early or whatever, and you miss stuff. And I'm doing the same thing with binge watching. I'll sit down in that chair and I'll turn on, and I'll wake up 3 episodes later, and I still haven't watched what I'm going to watch. So in Genesis, we're looking at episodes from the life of Abraham. We don't see everything that Abraham did every day. We're looking at the big major things that happened in Abraham's life. And because of that, I think we need to go back and kind of follow this storyline that maybe we've missed a little bit of. And the main storyline that we're going to be talking about is this idea that God is going to give him a son. Right? It takes 25 years of episodes to get from I'm going to give you a son to now you have a son. And I just want us to kind of run through the episodes and the things that happen. And we're going to go all the way from chapter 12 to chapter 22. But we're going to skip some stuff that we'll go back to later, and we're going to paraphrase some stuff. But I want to actually take a passage from 2 Timothy chapter 2 as our launching pad. So if you want to run over to the New Testament, to 2 Timothy chapter 2. Paul is writing to try to encourage Timothy, to encourage the people that Timothy is teaching, to make themselves available to God and to do things that will get them in the right frame of mind and in the right kind of lifestyle so that God can use them. So in 2 Timothy chapter 2, verses 20 and 21, here's what Paul tells Timothy. In a large house there are articles not only of gold and silver, but also of wood and clay. Some are for noble purposes, and some for ignoble purposes. If a man cleanses himself from the latter, he will be an instrument for noble purposes, made holy, useful to the master, and prepared to do any good works. And I want us to use the phrase tonight to describe Sarah as being a vessel of honor. It is supposed to be her honor to bear the child of Abraham, who will be the beginning of this long line of ancestry that will bring forth Messiah. But on the way to that, this vessel of honor is dishonored, and not only by others, but by herself. And we have a constant kind of doing and undoing of Sarah as this vessel of honor. So we're going to run through them just to remind you of some things, and then we'll tack on a couple of things at the end so that we can binge watch this thing. I want us to see all the episodes at once, and then we'll go back and look at some of the things that are in between. You may have noticed that as you're reading in Genesis, you'll get 2 or 3 things that all follow each other, and then there'll be something over there. Like when we were talking about Abraham and Lot separate, then God is dealing just with Abraham, and suddenly we have to go deal with Lot being taken captive and carried off by those kings. So you have these little inserted episodes that you have to kind of go around. All right, so in Genesis 12, we've reminded ourselves of this one kind of over and over again. God comes to Abraham and tells him to leave your home, leave your country and your people, your father's household, go to the land I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you. I will give you a great name, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you. I will curse those who curse you. And all the people of the earth will be blessed through you. And the next verse is Abraham left. Right? He did what God told him to do. So in the infancy of Abraham's faith, he takes the vessel of honor with him, and they move to where God told them to be. Unfortunately, by the end of chapter 12, a famine comes. He moves down to Egypt, and you remember what happened in Egypt. He takes the vessel of honor and gives her to Pharaoh because he doesn't want to be killed. He's afraid that if they find out that she is his wife, that they'll kill him and take her for Pharaoh anyway. And we find out later that this was a deal that he made with Sarah before they ever left Haran. He and Sarah are half brother and half sister. They have the same father, different mothers. So they were married within that clan. But before they ever move, Abram says, when we go out among these strangers, always say you're my sister. So it's an ongoing ruse that the two of them have. But Abraham gives the vessel of honor to Pharaoh. Bad things happen to Pharaoh. Pharaoh gives her back. Good things happen to Abraham. The question is, what would have happened, what could have happened, what might have happened if she had remained with Pharaoh? Why is this why do we need to know this? Well, if Pharaoh is able to give her a son, he's the wrong son with the vessel of honor. The vessel of honor belongs to Abraham. The promises belong to Abraham. She's 65 years old, and so in our culture, in our time frame, we say, well, not much chance at all that this woman's going to become pregnant. But in a time frame when Abraham is going to live to be 120, how long might his wife have lived? How long might she have been capable of bearing children? Why does God wait till she's 90 years old to make his definite point that this is not a human thing? You get over to Genesis 13. Look at verses 14 through 18. Genesis 13, starting in verse 14. The Lord said to Abram after Lot had parted from him, "Lift up your eyes from where you are and look north and south and east and west. All the land that you see I will give to you and to your offspring forever. I will make your offspring like the dust of the earth, so that if anyone could count the dust, then your offspring could be counted. Go walk through the length and breadth of the land. I'm giving it all to you." So Abram moved his tents and went to live near the great trees of Mamre at Hebron, and he built there an altar to the Lord. So at the end of 13, we've got the storyline going, and things are good, and Abram's listening, and he's built an altar to the Lord. But then we have to take out a chapter, because we have Lot, who gets carried off into captivity, and Abram comes and rescues Lot, and we get that little snippet about Melchizedek, kind of that mysterious priest of God, king of Salem. So 14 is one of those chapters that just kind of, we slept through an episode or something. We wake up and something has changed. You get to 15, and God says, "Don't be afraid, Abram. I'm your shield, your very great reward." But Abram said, "O sovereign Lord, what can you give me since I remain childless?" So following behind all the promises he made to him at the end of 13, you jump over to 15, and Abram is just not sure that things are going to be the way that he imagined that they might come out. So Abraham bypasses the vessel of honor by assuming that his servant is going to be the one who inherits all his stuff. Culture says that Eleazar is going to be my inheritor, he's going to be my beneficiary, and well, we can't do anything about it, God, because you didn't give us a child. Now we're going to have to just give everything to him. God is looking at Sarah as the vessel of honor. Abram is looking at a servant. Maybe I'll just leave everything to Eleazar. Chapter 16. Now we've kind of caught up with ourselves. We woke up from our nap. In 16, Sarah does the same thing that Abraham did back with Pharaoh and with Eleazar. She discredits herself. And this is maybe one of the saddest episodes of all of Abraham's story. It says in the beginning of 16, Sarah, Abram's wife, had borne him no children. But she had an Egyptian maidservant named Hagar. So she said to Abram, "The Lord has kept me from having children. Go sleep with my maidservant. Perhaps I can build a family through her." Isn't that sad? I mean, Sarah has been living with Abram as his wife for all these years. In their culture, to not have children was an earmark of some kind of spiritual problem, not just physical, but there's something wrong with you as a person that you're not having any children. And she says it about herself. The Lord has kept me from having any children. So all this time that God has been promising Abram a child, Sarah has not been able to produce an heir for Abram, and she's taking it very personally. She feels like that it's her fault and that they're not going to be able to enjoy the things that God is promising them because she's incapable of doing what she has to do. So she comes up with this great idea. I have an Egyptian maidservant named Hagar, and I will give you Hagar. And the old expression, and I don't think it shows up in any of the modern translations, but the expression was that Abraham would have a child upon her knees. Have you ever heard that phrase? He will have a child upon my knees. And what it means is I'm giving you permission, and I'm going to be a part of the process so that you can have a child through this woman. It's not a secret tryst. It's not some kind of wild adulterous relationship. You're not cheating on me. I'm giving you my servant so that you can have a child, and the child then will belong to me. And that's the kind of thinking that kind of follows behind Abraham's idea that Eleazar would be the inheritor, right? If you have a child with a slave, then the slave belongs to you. And Sarah says, I'm going to give you the slave. You're going to have a child with her, but the child will belong to me. Abraham buys into this, and I think maybe we could have a pretty long sermon about male spiritual leadership. What happened to Adam and Eve? Eve says, hey, I've got an idea. Adam says, okay, right? Buys into it. Sarah says, hey, Abraham, I've got an idea. Abraham says, okay, he buys into it. There's no indication in the text that Abraham had any kind of desire toward Hagar, just that she was presented to him as someone who could have a child. And so he and Hagar get together, and Hagar conceives. What does this do if you're Sarah? It's horrible, right? You suggested it, but even though you suggested it, it says the problem was not Abraham, right? Abraham is fertile. Abraham can have children. So all these years that I thought it was my fault, now we've proven that it's my fault. So Sarah is heartbroken, and she begins to take it out on Hagar. And Hagar, now that she's pregnant, begins to take it out on Sarah. So there's infighting in the house between the owner and the slave who is now pregnant with the head of the household's child. So there's this battle going on. Sarah goes and tells Abraham that she can't put up with Hagar anymore because Hagar is treating her badly. Abraham does the same thing again that he did when Sarah first brought it up, right? Sarah brings it up. Abraham says, okay, we'll do what you want to do. She comes to him and says, I can't put up with Hagar being here anymore. And Abraham says, she belongs to you. You can do whatever you want to with her. Right? He doesn't intervene. He doesn't try to be a peacemaker. He doesn't do anything to try to fix it. He just says, she belongs to you. Now, to our ears, again, that seems like maybe Abraham should have done something. According to culture, Hagar belonged to Sarah. He says, it was your idea. We did what you wanted to do. If it's not working out the way you want it to work out, then do something different. Sarah then began to abuse Hagar. And it doesn't go into detail in the text as to what she was doing to Hagar that was abusive, whether it was verbal or whether it was ostracizing or whether she was actually hurting her physically. But Hagar runs away. She goes outside the camp. She goes to hide somewhere else. And she has a visit from an individual known as the angel of the Lord. Now, in Old Testament scripture, sometimes you'll see an angel will come and do something. But on a lot of occasions, you have an individual who is called the angel of the Lord. That's a different thing. It seems that the angel of the Lord is so closely connected to God that most of the time, when they have spoken to that angel, they say, I have seen God. Right? It's somehow that angel is intimately connected with God and makes appearances only in very, very important occasions. When Moses goes up and sees the burning bush, the angel of the Lord spoke to him from the bush. The next sentence is, and the Lord said to Moses. Right? So you've got almost interchangeable parts. So things that we don't know about times 10. But this is a very, very important individual that shows up to talk to Hagar. And when he finds her, she's distraught. He says, don't worry about it. Everything's going to be okay. I will take care of you. I'll take care of the child. I'm going to bless the child, and the child's going to be a great warrior. He's going to have 12 tribes born from him. So just like Isaac does later, Ishmael is going to have 12 tribes. And he gives him the name Ishmael, or she gives him the name Ishmael, which means the God who hears me. So baby Ishmael is born, and every time she calls him to dinner, she remembers, I was out in the desert and my mistress had been beating me or treating me poorly out, whatever the case may have been, and I was alone and I was scared, but this God heard me. Right? So very happy memory every time that she talks about Ishmael. At this point, Abraham is about 86 years old. Right? It's been 11 years since God told him to leave his home and his family and that he would make him a great nation. So 11 years later, we finally have a son that is from Abraham. Who is the child not from? The vessel of honor. Right? The vessel of honor is unhappy, she's upset, and she's still childless. So nothing has changed as far as God's original plan. About 13 years go by and you get into chapter 17. And when you get into chapter 17, Abraham is 99 years old. So do the math, it's 24 years since God made the first promise that he was going to give him a son. Look at 17 verse 1. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to him and said, I am God Almighty. Do you remember that one? El Elyon. I am God Almighty. Walk before me and be blameless. I will confirm my covenant between me and you will greatly increase your numbers. Abram fell face down. And God said to him, as for me, this is my covenant with you. You will be the father of many nations. No longer will you be Abram. Your name will be Abraham. I have made you a father of many nations. I will make you fruitful. I will make nations of you, and kings will come from you. I will establish my covenant as an everlasting covenant between me and you, and your descendants after you, for the generations to come, to be your God and the God of your descendants after you. The whole land of Canaan, where you are now an alien, I will give as an everlasting possession to you and to your descendants after you, and I will be their God. Then God said to Abram, as for you, you must keep my covenant, you and your descendants after you, for the generations to come. This is my covenant with you and your descendants after you. The covenant you are to keep, every male among you shall be circumcised. You are to undergo circumcision, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and you. For the generations to come, every male among you who is 8 days old must be circumcised, including those who are born in your household or bought with money from a foreigner, those who are not your offspring, whether born in your household or bought with your money, they must be circumcised. My covenant in your flesh is to be an everlasting covenant. Any any uncircumcised male who has not been circumcised in the flesh will be cut off from among the people. He has broken my covenant. He goes on to change Sarai's name and to say that she is going to be the mother of a great generation. Abraham falls face down on the ground and laughs. Right? Now, I always remember the fact that Sarah laughs. But in chapter 17, verse 17, Abraham fell down, he laughed, and he said to himself, will a son be born to a man 100 years old? Will Sarah bear a child at the age of 90? And Abraham said to God, if only Ishmael could live under your blessing. Still can't let it go. It's not possible for you to do what you said you were going to do because my wife is 90 years old. I realize that you thought maybe she was the vessel of honor, but we've got this worked out, right? We have slave girl, and the slave girl had a child, so here's my child, Ishmael. You can use him to foster the promise. And God, of course, turns it down and says, a year from now, Sarai will have a child, you and Sarah. The vessel of honor is going to have the child that I've been promising all this time. When you get over to 18, no, we have to skip 18 and 19. Go over to 20. No, let's skip 20. 21. See what I mean? You have 3 or 4 things that pop up in there, and there's another one of these Abraham gives her away sections in the middle of all of this. A king named Abimelech down at Gerar, but we'll look at those. We'll put those together later on. But when you get to 21, Isaac is born. What's different about Isaac and Ishmael, just to begin with? Okay? He is the son of both, right? He is Abraham and Sarah's child. God has opened her womb at 90 years old. She has a child. But there's a second difference that's really important. Ishmael was circumcised when he was 13. Abraham was circumcised when he was 99. 99. He's circumcised. All the men in his household. Remember, he had 318 men who were in his militia. All those guys, right? One giant family gathering, and all these guys are circumcised because they're entering this covenant. Isaac is circumcised on the 8th day. He's the first one who becomes the covenant kid, right? I'm going to make my covenant with you. You remember when God walked between the cut up carcasses to make a covenant with Abraham, and Abraham didn't do anything. It was just God walked between the carcasses. Well, here's the opposite of that. God says the sign of the covenant for you is going to be circumcision, right? God doesn't need to be circumcised. Abraham needs to be circumcised. So all of the men buy into the covenant, and this was true all the way up through, even through the present day. It's an ongoing detail in the Jewish community, something that is absolutely important to somebody entering into the Old Testament covenant. And then finally in Genesis 22, God tells Abraham to offer Isaac as a sacrifice. And Abraham says, I'll do it. Why does Abraham say he'll do it? Because he believes that God could raise Isaac from the dead if he does. He's gone from Sarah, just say you're my sister, and go live with Pharaoh, to I'll sacrifice my only son that God has given me through the vessel of honor after 25 years of waiting. I don't know how old Isaac was, but let's say he was 10, old enough to make that journey, carry wood, all that kind of stuff. So 35 years of this journey of some days really faithful, some days really kind of sketchy, and you get to that point when God says, take your son and go sacrifice him. And Abraham says, okay, I'll do it. And you can tell that Abraham has kind of arrived. So when we talk about Abraham as the father of the faithful, or Sarah as the multitude, as the mother of the multitudes, We're talking about two people who have been through a lot of years of some good days, some bad days in their relationship with God. So what does that mean to us? Well, when we're young in the faith, things happen and we respond a certain way. As we get more mature in our faith, things happen and perhaps we respond a different way. We've come to trust God more. We've come to understand God more and to kind of buy into his plan instead of into our own. All of us, and we could write a book about how we've all done this, but all of us have had Ishmaels in our lives, right? We said, well, here's the problem, I'm going to fix it. And we just set out to fix it, and then it doesn't work the way we want it to, so we pray to God and we say, God, look, I fixed it. Bless the way I fixed it. And God says, well, that's not the way we're doing this, right? Either you want me to do my will, or you want me to do your will. It doesn't work that way. I'm not going to be your servant. You're going to be mine. And as much as we want to put God into our payroll, that's not the way it works. And so patience and experience and growth, all of that takes time. And we don't have enough young people with us tonight that I could pick on them. But it used to be more accepted in society that older people were wise. Right? That you go ask Grandpa. Grandpa knows stuff. In our culture, that has shifted a little bit. There's more emphasis put on how much technology and how much knowledge younger people have. And it's amazing to watch, what they can do. But when it just comes to life experience and the growth of faith over time, there's nothing that can match up with people who have been in the Lord for a lot of years. Right? So when you look at Abraham, when he's ready to offer Isaac, he's not the same guy he was when he left Haran. Each episode taught him a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more until he was the guy that God could use, and Sarah was the vessel of honor that he could use to bring Isaac. And so it's a great lesson for a summer camp crowd, I think, to try to remind them that those who came before them have some things to share. But anyway, put that in the back of your mind. Remember those things. And Lord willing, next week we'll go back and pick up on some of those things that we had to skip over